What's up, everybody? Welcome back to HR Heretics. It's time for our 2024 Best of Clips. Here we go. Here's Molly Graham, writer and head of the Glue Club, talking about managing teams within dysfunctional companies.
Like, it never ceases to amaze me, the level of dysfunction underneath some of the $10 billion companies. It hits you at some point, the dysfunction. If your business is sucking, the dysfunction shows up more clearly. One of my proudest things is I've built a couple really happy, high-performing teams in dysfunctional businesses. And I think that's hard to do. I spend time first on the business because the business matters a ton. And if the business isn't going well, it reverberates down into the team and vice versa.
Up next is Tomas Tungusz, a prominent investor and well-known author, talking about this moment of opportunity.
I think it means it's an incredible time to be a young and up-and-coming leader because the opportunities you will be afforded may never happen again. So I think it's very, very exciting. I agree with you. I've seen it across, the LP base, you had many CIOs who said, I've had an amazing run, not going to happen again in my lifetime, so I'll retire. You've had many CEOs, like you said, who built effectively little funds of great portfolio companies of their time. Now there's just a lot of chewing gravel where riff after riff and correction and down rounds. But I think the people who stick it out and grit it out, they're the ones who will build really disciplined companies that have the resolve and the fortitude to be able to thrive in really tough markets. And when inevitably the market rips again, which it always does, they'll be in an unbelievable position. So I think it's a really wonderful time for young and up-and-coming leaders.
Moving on to the next, Vijay Pendakur, DEI expert, explaining why systemic bias exposes human imperfection, demanding deliberate change.
The reason Alex's MEI framework landed like a flaming turd on so many people's sensibilities is because we are so far from that in human organizations. The level at which bias and noise infects every aspect of talent attraction, talent acquisition, talent evaluation, promotion. It's rampant. And I think any honest conversation would have to name that these are really imperfect systems that are about the humans and the scaling of human errors and decision-making across human networks. And so when you take that kind of a network theory view on this, then what we know is that we need some sort of an intervention to actually make it so that people's immutable factors are not limiting their ability to function. And so DEI, if you want to even incrementally edge towards King's vision, then you can't do it without DEI.
Next up is Patti McCord, friend of the pod, former chief talent officer on Netflix for 14 years and guest on our debut episode.
Before we get started talking about the intricacies of the bonus program, which I think I'm a pretty smart person, but honestly, I'm kind of twisted about it. Have you ever not paid it? What do you mean? I'm like, so 7 years, have you ever not paid the annual performance bonus? Well, I don't know that that's relevant. I'm like, it's totally relevant. Have you ever not paid it? No. I'm like, okay, so it's not a performance bonus. The only thing you have to do to earn this bonus is be employed on December 31st. So it's actually a retention bonus. It has nothing to do with performance. All these calculations that you're doing end up that people always get paid this bonus, right? And I'm like, and this is, 5-10 years ago in San Francisco. I'm like, and so your average employee is a 28-year-old single man who's living in the most expensive city in America. Why don't you just let him pay more rent?
It's so simple to say, but it's you guys Netflix did this years ago. This is not a new concept, but it still hasn't been modeled.
Yeah, why not? You guys tell me.
That's what I want to know.
You're in the world. Why do we keep doing this stupid stuff?
Coming up next is Andy Price, VC and one of the best exec recruiters in the world.
I hate the 1 year BS. It's you can have one or two of those in your career. You have 3 or 4. It tells you everything about somebody. And then somebody was like, oh, it has to do with the psycho founder. It's no, it does not. if you are smart and you're judicious, you know how to vet a human being. Otherwise, why does anybody give you the right to hire anybody? If you're not a judge of character, you shouldn't have the right to be a manager or a VP or a C-level, whatever.
Totally.
So you should be able to look into the eyes of the founder, ask them questions, test them. One other thing I'll quickly say is people don't ask each other hard questions early on enough and gauge how the other person can handle a hard question. That's really important. And so I think tenure has to do with people being flaky and being like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go make this money there and make this money there. And they're like little squirrels running around the forest, blindly trying to grab the acorns, stuck them in the tree for the harsh winter. And they're scrambling around, but there's no game plan there, right? Like they're not the alpha of the forest for a reason. They're lower on the food chain.
Next in line, Nolan, is someone I've known for about 12 years, a friend of ours here on the pod, Colleen McCreary.
Love you, Colleen.
The rolling layoffs piece, I think that part is exceptionally harmful to a culture, especially for those big companies. They have a lot of people. They could plan for, hey, this is the date. We're going to execute on this date. We're going to tell people when it's done. And these are the same companies that just a year or two ago were talking about mental health for our employees is important and the emotional health of our employees is important. And they still do it, some of them, which really it's the hypocrisy of the message that they could really be thoughtful around what they're doing and the how that they're doing. And that's what I think is really frustrating more than anything else. And to feel like people are not taking any responsibility or accountability for having let that happen.
Up next is Brett McQueener, Managing Director at Bonfire Ventures and current board member at Pendo. He tells us how common sense trumps stuffy board meeting protocol.
I called Danny. I'm like, Danny, who's coming to the board dinner tonight? Oh, the board members and me. I'm like, what is the point of that? VCs, there's plenty of opportunities VCs drink expensive wine together. The point of the board meeting is we want to engage with you, but we know you, but we want to engage with your management team. One, to get the next level of detail, and two, to help guide you to understand how aligned they are and how competent they are. And if you don't invite them to the board dinner, that's where we loosen them up and they realize we bleed, we're humans as well, right? Right? Like, you'll get the random board member that'll like throw out libertarian weird shit that's unacceptable or talk about their house in the south of France. Okay, fine. Like, okay, stop. And then I said, well, okay, how about the board meeting tomorrow? I'm going to bring him in one by one. What? Like it's a firing line? He's like, what are you doing? So I said, for now, next board dinner, I'm not coming to your board dinner unless your leadership team is there.
All right, moving on to Matt Oberhart, talent partner at Andreessen Horowitz.
We're in a period where, people are getting sloppy with back channels. I'm sure we've all seen it based on the phone calls that we get or emails we get from people we don't even know asking about somebody, and it text, whatever, LinkedIn messages, all that. I just, some of the biggest things I tell our entrepreneurs is don't cold call into current employers. Only reach out to people that you know well, that are going to, probably give you good information. Don't be out there carpet bombing someone's network to try to get 15 or 20 or 30 references. It's just, it's just poor form, and it puts the candidate in an awkward position, makes you look unprofessional, and potentially poisons the whole recruiting process, honestly. Even before you get to outreach, I talk a lot to our entrepreneurs about being precise. Like, what is your referencing strategy?
Let's hear it next from LJ Brock, Chief People Officer at Coinbase, telling us to spark fights to build deeper connections faster.
I think one of the things you want to do when you work for a founder leader, at least, and I tell this to my team, I want to develop another set of CHROs, and they're always asking me for tips. And I say to them, like, you want to get to your near-death moment with them as fast as possible. Don't be afraid of that. Like, run head first into your near-death moment where you two are going to go head to head, and you're going to figure out, are we going to work together or are we not? And if you can have that kind of moment really quickly, then I think you come out. If you do come out, look, there's a chance you die and you got to go get another job. And that's scary, and I get it, but I think it's better to go through that and then find another one that you can work at. And there's a good chance you'll get through the other side. And when you get through the other side, the trust and the connection that you have helps you see through, like, this fear that people are painting at you.
Up next, DHH, co-founder of 37 Signals, now Basecamp, in this spicy clip about how raw authenticity wins over polite passivity every time.
It's going to ruffle some feathers and maybe it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but know who you are. We had actually made the mistake of not being clear about who we were, not being clear about where the guidelines were and what we would tolerate, and we had tolerated way too much bullshit for way too long. We should have nipped this in the butt really early. We now put in our job opening. Seven Signals does not take a position on societal political topics. We're not going to talk politics where we work, right? You can talk politics all you want. I talk politics all the time. Find like-minded people. Politics can be a fun thing to talk about, but not at work. That's not the space for us to deliberate on the great injustices of society or the historical context of the slave trade or whatever it is. However pertinent and important those issues are to you, don't bring them to work. Exercise your out-of-work self for that. Be an activist. Show up for a march. Do all the things in your spare time. We're only asking you to work 40 hours a week. There should be enough time left over for you to do that.
Moving on to Peterson Conway, early employee and recruiter at companies like Zoom and Palantir.
Another way to frame that question is like, what is the winning question when you're meeting somebody? And you'll see where this is going. But Peter taught me a question very early on. I do 12 to 15 calls a day, 70 to 80 calls a week, and 2,000 interviews a year. And I use that question every single time. I usually send them an email in advance, and I ask them, any surprises? It doesn't matter if they've just had an interview, if I've known the person for years and they've just come out of an interview, or I've sent them into the big boss's office, any surprises? And it is a binary answer. If they come out and say no, you know that this is a person that is not curious, that isn't an optimist, because anyone that meets anything for the first time will always find something surprising. It doesn't matter if you're meeting the garbage man out front. Like, you can find something beautiful and interesting and surprising in any business, any bad idea, any failed founder. Like, you have to be constantly learning. I think that these are tremendously dynamic people that continually evolve and learn. When it comes to people, you got to be curious.
Maybe there's some surprises, though, you know.
Yeah. All right, down to our last two clips. First off, exposing the era of charismatic executives who talk big but deliver nothing.
Paul Graham and Brian Chesky have told every founder to start micromanaging every aspect of their business. Like, that's what the naysayers are going to say. And I don't think that that's it. I actually think what's going on here is that we are exiting an era of where there was a lot of high-powered executives that didn't do shit inside of a company. They came in, they're very good orators, they're very good at relationships, they're very good at making people feel good, and founders got spellbound by these folks and trusted them. And ultimately what happened is they hired very big teams and didn't produce results. Results is the thing in every company. And this is for everyone who's listening. It doesn't matter if you're in tech or if you're in any other line of work, whether it's a founder, whether it's a CEO that's like really hands-on, you know, whether it's like your boss who's like over your work. This applies to all of those relationships. We all have relational capital. It's like a bank. And, you know, the way that you could take out loans with a low interest rate is by including that person as part of the journey and letting them in and showing them how you're thinking about trade-offs and showing them how you're thinking about different, you know, areas. And that way, if you do take a loss, that the loss doesn't hurt you that bad.
Totally.
Versus if you want to go spend a shit ton of relational capital, is like you go into a dark hole and you don't share what you're doing and you come out and the person who you work for hates that thing. That's how you burn trust to the ground.
And here's Kelly's take on building adaptable ninja teams that outmaneuver bureaucratic zombies.
You have to build a great team that is trustworthy, transparent, and that you can literally pivot them very quickly. Like, you have to build this team where they are all ninjas and they're all really good and they can all just move. And I don't think a lot of folks spend enough time on that because they're pulled into 25 different directions at C-team level, then they're pulled into crap at employee issues, and they don't spend enough time building these not copy paste, but this army of you, right? That you can move very quickly and get stuff done.
We hope you guys have an excellent end to your 2024. We are going to be back bigger, better, stronger than ever in 2025. Have a good holiday.
Hey everyone, a word from our sponsors.
I must admit, I used to believe that AI didn't actually exist in recruiting or HR. That is until my friend Heather Doche, who leads talent at Signalfire, told me to check out Metaview. I got into the product and was like, wow, AI actually does exist in recruiting, and this product is sick. Metaview is the world's #1 AI scribe built specifically for recruiting. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes everything. With perfect notes from every conversation, your people can focus on creating a human connection with candidates, and they can save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Metaview covers all your compliance needs, works with all your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at organizations like Brex, Deal, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts. Tell them that me and Kelly sent you. Or you could just go to their website and get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes.